Awesome, awesome. Welcome to another episode of How to Make It in Toronto. I'm super excited to be sitting down here with Doug Crowe, who's a gifted leader with a variety of talents. Doug is a seasoned investor, marketing expert, and a brilliant author. He writes for Entrepreneur Magazine, has been published by Yahoo Finance, the Chicago Tribune, and the Daily Herald, as well as the Seattle Times. So we're super excited to get the opportunity to sit down with him and learn from him as well. Welcome, Doug.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Awesome. So let's jump right in. My first question is, how do you define success, and has that changed over the years and as you've accomplished everything you have?
It's changed 3 times over the years. You know, when you're in your 20s and 30s, you're in growth mode. It's all about you and the achievement. 40s, 50s, you're like, hey, family's important. I'm going to go ahead and focus on that a little bit. And hopefully you've got some things set up. And then 50s, 60s, you're like, what am I going to do with all this money? I might as well go ahead and focus on purpose or something. So there's like phases that you go through.
Yeah.
And I'm on the third phase. Yeah, I still need to make money, of course, but I don't, I sometimes make decisions that are not based on that. Matter of fact, most of the time it's based on something more important than that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think for myself and my journey, I'm starting to understand the phases portion, right? Like, obviously focused on career, but then you're starting to looking for more deeper meaning. And then, you get to meet new connections and kind of change your perspective as well. So it does and is constantly changing.
Yeah.
So would you mind telling us a little bit about your background and how you've gotten to where you are right now?
Oh my gosh, how much time do you have? So I went to Northwestern and studied radio, TV, and film, and was very fortunate to go there and had some small jobs at ABC and CBS. It was fun, but one day an author came in to the studio for his interview, and it was Robert Allen, the guy who wrote No Money Down. And I was fascinated by his interview, so I went up to him after the interview and said, hey, Mr. Allen, how do you get involved in this real estate thing? Well, come to my high-priced workshop. He didn't say high price, but it was like $5,000 for 2 days at a hotel. And I said to him, I said, man, I'm making $3.10 an hour here. That's what the minimum wage was back in the day.
Yeah.
And to his credit, he said, go to the library and check out my book. It costs you nothing. So I did, and devoured it, read it, sat on it for a year, and then started buying real estate and became a real estate investor developer, had a radio show on ABC about real estate investing, did quite well with it, founded an academy about real estate investing, and graduated a bunch of students and did very well. And then one day, 2008 happened, and it all went down the sewer. So I had a string of foreclosures, 19 foreclosures, bankruptcy, divorce, clinical depression. It was a horrible time in my life. But during my little boohoo phase, I wrote a book, and the book was awful. So I'm like, how can I make these things better? I don't understand how this works. But I had some famous people I had on the radio, so I said, hey, I called up Robert Kiyosaki. Hey, man, how'd you get this book thing done? He said, oh, I'm a best-selling author. I'm not a best-selling writer. And Laura Langmeyer said the same thing. She was more blatant. She said, I've never written a book. You're a New York Times bestseller. Yeah, ghostwriter. So over the years, 15 years now, I've been refining our process for journalism, ghostwriting, developmental editing, production, and marketing, and now distribution to get our complete ecosystem and throughput for our founders and CEOs who want to be thought leaders or want to be slightly famous in their industry. We do that with a book as an anchor and a bunch of other things to go with it to get them to where they want to go.
Yeah, that's amazing. And just looking at your website and seeing some of the testimonials on there, I mean, it really speaks to the work that you're doing. I want to start obviously in regards to your journey. Going through everything that you went through. 2008 happens. Everything is falling apart. How did you, obviously in that moment, you didn't necessarily know what's going on and you had to react with the information you had at hand. But what were some things that helped you handle such an obstacle and then be able to kind of iterate and change your path and get into what you're doing now?
Well, you're gonna pull out of me something I've been keeping in secret for 15 years now, Carl. I don't know. I'll give you a little background. I was president of my class, homecoming king, voted most likely to succeed. So when everything went down the sewer, I was embarrassed. I couldn't face my own family. I couldn't talk to my friends. I was a broken person. But along my journey to that point, I had read Zig Ziglar. I always loved the motivation game, the self-development. I was a Dale Carnegie instructor. I mean, I love this stuff. I'm listening to Think and Grow Rich again right now. It's just great stuff. But during my depression, I went back to the things that got me there, and it didn't work anymore. I'm like, these guys are idiots. They're liars. I wouldn't wish this upon my worst enemy. I was mad. I was depressed. I was confused. I was very, very cloudy of how to get out of this funk. I'm like, oh, just be patient. Or most millionaires have been broke 2.2 times in their life. This is your turn. I'm like, I was untenable. So I'm driving on the road one day, putting motivational CDs in, put this guy, idiot, put this guy in, liar, put this guy in, joke. I put one CD in 9 months of clinical depression, gone in 6 seconds. What just happened to me? I pulled the CD out. I'm like, who is this guy? It was me. It was my voice back when I had my goal-setting CD for my real estate academy, and I didn't recognize my own voice for almost 10, 12 seconds. And when I recognized it, and that positive guy was talking to me, I snapped out just like that. So because of that experience, we are rolling out something that's pretty profound. We're rolling out it's a SaaS AI project where we're going to customize and personalize books for individual readers. So, for example, what's going to happen next month? I've got public domain works like Think and Grow Rich. You can go onto our website, answer a couple questions about your personality, goals, obstacles, and dreams, and that book will be rewritten completely end to end with your name on the front cover, written in your personality, embedded with your goals and your dreams and your obstacles, how to get around them. It's a complete custom blueprint designed for you based on the principles in that book. Yeah. And then coming full circle on my 2008 dip, then you get a text message every day reminding you of the action you got to take to be accountable and keep your habits in line. And then you get a voicemail from the future. Because most people are going, rags to riches. I was riches to rags. So how do you translate them? Well, what if you got a voicemail from yourself, your voice saying, hey, Carl, it's 2030. You did a great job in 2025, man. Thanks for doing all that hard work, because now you're on a beach in Hawaii having the life of your dreams. So it reminds you of your future state and gives you the action, the accountability to take current state towards that future.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Yeah. And I love you how you mentioned it was you that got you out of the position you're in, and not searching for answers outside of you. And I feel like
I was searching.
Yeah, exactly.
But I didn't believe him anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. And I totally agree with that. Just in regards to being able to kind of take a look at yourself and remember who you are and understand that, as we said in the beginning, life is about these seasons, right? And in that moment, it took you kind of taking a look and saying, at one point I dreamed about being here, and I've gotten here, and now things have changed. And it's just like taking that accountability, being able to look at yourself, and then take the necessary steps to build out of that, right?
Right. Yep.
And so, how did you get started, especially on your entrepreneurial journey? Obviously, you were in real estate, investing. Yes. What prompted you to go there? Was it something that maybe a mentor, friends?
It's funny, yeah. When I had this epiphany and I invented this idea of a personalized interactive book for people, we didn't have the technology we have nowadays, right? Back then, this was 2009, really. And I did a very crude version of what I do now. I did with one book, my own book, and I rewrote it 4 times, had form fields to fill out so people could customize it, and they get a physical book in the mail, which was a lot of fun. But I had this idea, and I'm like, I'm gonna roll this thing out. I'm just gonna do it. And I did some beta testing with New York Life Insurance, Rotary, a couple other people, and they all loved it. Then I took it to the biggest person I knew, the executive producer, Pretty Woman, Gary Goldstein, who was friends with Chet Holmes. Chet Holmes has since passed, but he was a very popular influencer in the business world. And he looked at this interactive system that I created and said, "That's cute, Doug. What do I want with a $100 product? Why don't you just write a full-size book and charge, 30, 40 grand to people?" Like, okay, $100, 40 grand. I'm like, okay, good idea, Chet, thank you. So I set that aside, and I started ghostwriting for founders and CEOs.
Yeah.
And now it's full circle. I'm going back to it now. I'm like, you know what? That was a really good idea. Now I got the technology and the chops and the network to back it up, because we're going to be placing this. We're going to start with our minimum viable product on a B2C area, but we're going to go to B2B next year pretty quickly with other authors who want to have other iterations of their book besides print, digital, audio. The fourth iteration will be interactive.
Wow. And one of the things I love that you've mentioned right away is you're already incorporating AI into what you're doing, which is obviously a game changer. And so for you, as you're building this tool, with the goal of targeting the right audience, with the goal of people being able to understand a story from their perspective and their understanding, what helped you, or what are things that you look for when trying to implement, or iterate the product that you're creating? Like you've just mentioned, building in AI. Where are you getting this information? What's driving you?
That's a question I've been playing with now for almost a year, because I used some vibe coding and created 2 small pieces of software for my authors. So we can go and just a brief backstory on that. We used to spend 2 weeks doing research for our author clients by data mining Amazon 3-star reviews, right? We ignored 1 stars, people are just mad, and we ignore 5-star reviews. It's usually somebody's mother. But a 3-star review always gives you good data. Hey, I like this book, but I enjoyed this book. However, I was expecting this. And we were going in manually and going through all the best-selling authors in a category and pulling 100, 200 3-star reviews, and copying and pasting their comments, analyzing it manually, putting it in a spreadsheet, giving it to our clients, saying, hey, when you craft this book with us or without, doesn't matter, make sure you don't do this and make sure you do this. They're getting great intel on how to properly position their book and what to put in there, what not to put in there. It used to take us 2 weeks. I spent a weekend on a vibe coding thing and created this software, and now it takes us 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's
so
amazing.
For a simple workflows like that, anybody can create their own software. And that's the thing that I'm not sure everybody is seeing, but I see it. Just as I grew up when there were only 3 TV channels, and now there's what? 8 billion approximately. Everyone's got one, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with software. Software, Microsoft. They made billions on this thing. Well, guess what? Everyone can make their own software now.
Yeah.
And it's only going to get more prolific and more disintermediation of that thing. I don't know how to code. I know this much HTML. That's it. But I was doing, English language prompts, and it was writing all the code for me. Yeah. So that's the biggest thing I see in the future is people going to write their own thing, which brings me to my main thing that we're focusing on now, which is not the tech, because the tech is going to be great, but it's going to change.
100%.
Right? I mean, it changes faster than we can adapt. We can't even adapt to the internet or social media, let alone AI. It's going so fast. Nobody can create an AI and go, oh, this is my business. I'm like, no, it's not. Yeah. That can be disrupted next week if you're not careful. So how do you avoid or cope with the technology acceleration as a human being? We can't beat it. We can't get ahead of it for sure. Don't even try to get ahead of it. Yeah. But there's one thing that I believe in, and I don't know how AI can replace this, which is human relationships.
Yes, sir.
So we focus on that quite a bit. Our distribution angle for our authors now is based on relationships, meeting the founders and CEOs of large organizations, some Fortune 1000 companies, some large associations, nonprofits. And we work with them to get our clients' books in the hands and hearts and minds of their audiences through relationships, not through start with a Zoom call and email, but when I meet somebody in person, we have a relationship, go break bread, have coffee, go play golf. Yeah. It's slow, it's old fashioned, and it works.
I could not agree more. And I think since starting the podcast and working on it, that's one of the main things I've noticed, the importance of your network, the people that are around you. That's the game changer. And then maintaining that relationship. I recently had a guest who told me who wrote a book on coffee culture and how it's important to just set a coffee meeting, check up, follow up and see, how things are going. And, not it just being a one-way relationship where you're always just asking for something, right? But being able to actually have the connection and put, you know, either your product or yourself in front of the right people that can, you know, really help you grow.
I obviously I love books, right? I've been reading books my life. We've been publishing them for 15 years. But I'm gonna do a quick shout out to Adam Grant's new book, Give and Take.
Yeah.
I'm good friends with Bob Berg, he wrote Endless Referrals and The Go Giver. I know 7 Habits for Highly Effective People, right? You know, give without expecting anything in return. We know these things intuitively, but you know, hustle culture and like you just said, you know, transactional stuff. Adam's book is brilliant beyond belief in terms of giving, taking, and transactions, the 3 different types of people.
Yeah.
And he does a really good job. I would definitely recommend that book to anybody who wants to build a solid referral business and have peace in their heart about what they do on a day-to-day basis. Because if you give without expecting anything in return, you win. It never happens quickly, but it always happens.
Yeah, I think that's another thing that you pointed out is the patience that it takes to actually see something through and build and grow. So before we get into obviously talking more about, you know, author your brand, I wanted to ask, you know, so far in your career, and you have mentioned challenges that you've overcome, but more specifically around, have you worked with an author where there was challenges and even, you know, working with them, trying to get in the same line of them, and how did you approach the situation? How did you overcome it, and what did you learn moving forward?
The biggest challenge I've had. There's some segments of different industries we don't work with, but we work with almost everybody who's got a story to tell. And the thing that I've discovered, and this comes from years in the radio and asking questions and being genuinely curious about other people, is that most people think they have unremarkable lives. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to who've done something like, "You did what? That's amazing." Oh yeah, they don't. A lot of people, the people with big egos, I don't play well with them. Oh, I'm wonderful like that. I can't. I just doesn't work well with what we do.
Yeah.
But the humble leaders, the people who've, you know, made $1 billion or you know, escaped the Taliban or, you know, was a Heisman Trophy candidate, or I've got so many people who've done amazing things, but they still retain their humility. Those are the ones that I have to work with and say, listen, you might not think you're, you know, big deal, and that's good, because that's going to make your book more relatable. The right people appreciate that. The weak followers follow, you know, the sizzle, right? But the ones that you want to attract, the sharp people, they don't get impressed with the trinkets. They get impressed with the value and the heart. So your humility is, we're going to use it to your advantage. Now, when you tell me a story, I want to know why you did this. See, people who write their own books, bless them. It's such a hard thing to do well and make it a book, right? A blog post, we can all do that. But a book Hollywood spends $100 million to keep your attention for a couple hours. Doesn't always work, right? With celebrities and special effects. You're asking someone to hold their attention for 4 to 6 hours with your words only. So storytelling's gotta be just top notch. And just writing your book on your own, man, you better get a really good developmental editor to help you out. But to answer your question directly, the hardest thing is to get people who are humble to go deep into their story and find out, oh my gosh, tell me more about that. I was talking to a fractional CFO just about a month ago, very humble guy, you know, and you know, he's a CFO, you know, he manages spreadsheets and projections and numbers. I'm like, it's kind of dull, man. Tell me more about you, right? And we get into his story of his personal side of his life. And nobody's personal life is separate from their business life. There's always crossover. That's what I was looking for. But the more I spoke with him, the more he started talking about his personal life and how he raises kids. There's a room of 16 CEOs, and half of them were tearing up. I'm like, I got it. That's your book. Not about the CFO of things, but how you apply your values to your work and why that's important to you. Because people take action on emotion. Logic or data, we forget. But a good story, man, that inspires us to do something.
I totally agree. And I think, you know, that's something that I'm learning as well is the importance of understanding, a person in totality. Do you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
understanding them from a personal aspect and what, maybe motivates them. And then obviously, what led them into that profession. And I think for me in understanding success, it's not just, I'm really smart at this and I did this, but it's, what you're also doing in the background, how you see the world, your perspective. And it's the marrying of those two things that make that person successful. And I think it's always interesting to kind of learn these stories and see some of the things people have overcome and some of the things that they've gone through and how important that is to their story and their success. Yeah. So for you, like obviously storytelling is something that is extremely important, especially in today's world. And I feel like, as you mentioned, people buy based off emotion. And currently we're in this phase where people are kind of aligning themselves with people who tell the same stories that they identify with.
Yeah.
And so from your perspective, what do you think can help someone or a brand be able to tell a good story? What elements needed to be included?
Yeah.
What do you think like the great hooks are in able to capture, your audience? Could you give me a little work on that?
Great question. Number one, there's different stories for different situations. And I kind of know this intuitively, but I'm sure there's people out there who've mapped it out. I think I saw someone who mapped it out for your origin stories for this, your objection handling stories for this. So there's different stories for different reasons.
Different reasons, yeah.
And they all need to have a point. They all need to have a hook. And they all should have a little bit of rising action or tension to keep the viewer, listener, reader engaged. So, hero's journey is a very popular one. You look at Star Wars or anything else, it's a hero's journey, young man goes on a quest, has all, faced with challenges, mentor helps him out and he vanquishes evil. There's more to it than that. But short stories that make a point are somehow they resonate with the person's heart as well as their brain. And I believe it's because stories predate language. We were telling stories before we had the English language, right? Cave drawings. I'm going on a hunt, right? There's stories are like they're baked into our DNA. So when you craft a story, don't just ramble on. Make sure there's a point to it. And the best part about telling a story, and I did my TEDx talk, my coach reminded me, never start at the beginning of the story. You watch some movies that always do this, right?
Yeah.
You start with the explosion. Oh my God, what happened here? Okay, let's go back to the history now and go back and find what happened. So it's always important to start with some hook, something interesting, and then whether you go back in time or forward in time, it doesn't really matter, but you need to have something which is compelling. And this works for emails, for books, for movies, TV, everything. Well, when we come back from our commercial break, why pigs could fly, what's that? I gotta wait, so I gotta watch a commercial to get to that story. So a hook is meant to pique curiosity in the reader viewer because we are such insanely curious people. Curiosity is the most powerful thing you can do in your storytelling. I can do this with you right now. Ready, Carl?
Yeah.
Don't answer me, but I'm gonna ask you a question. I'm gonna predict your answer, right? Carl, what color is the sky, right? And your brain just said blue, or maybe gray, depending on where you are. But you couldn't not answer that question. Your brain has to answer a question, or at least try to. So putting most of my headlines in my copy are questions. Like it makes people think. So a hook as a question is my favorite. Character development is important if you got time. But rising action, falling action, character development, these are all essential parts of most stories. The worst ones are when the character doesn't change. You're like, okay, he's the same guy he was at the beginning. So what is the point?
Yeah. That's awesome. And I love your point in terms of saying using questions in your titles. I think I learned something is the best way to teach someone is by being able to ask them the right questions so they can get up with the answer themselves.
That's right. And your questions are very good.
Thank you. Let me ask you, and this is more around storytelling and obviously in the time that we're in. A lot of short form content is starting to take hold, right? And obviously you're seeing that on Instagram and YouTube shorts. So when an author is considering writing a book, is that something you're taking into account in terms of how to craft a story and especially the amount of time that people are spending? I have read reading has kind of gone down, but we've seen a rise in Audible. For you, is this something that you focus on when you're working with your clients? And
It's a
how do
great
you
question.
around it? Yeah.
I was on another show last week and they asked me, since attention spans are shrinking, and I said, well, maybe, but let me challenge your assumption a little bit. You're saying our attention spans are shrinking. Is that true or not? It might be, but what if it's not? What if it's actually our attention spans are the same? It's just that the volume of content has exploded,
Yeah.
and we try to get as much as we can. So we purposely only try to get to the point right away, right? I'm like, well, that might be true also. I'm not sure, but I do know that Joe Rogan has a 3-hour podcast and is the #1 show out there. So that kind of goes against the grain of the short attention span syndrome. I thought it was ridiculous. My son's telling me, you gotta listen to this thing. I'm like, 3 hours? No way. But he gave me one episode on sleep and I couldn't put it down. I listened to it twice. It was so good. So I believe that attention spans may or may not be shorter, but that gives you even more motivation to be an exceptional storyteller where you can hold someone's attention and keep it by involving them, like our new programs coming out, or by aligning the story of what the person is feeling and doing. But yeah, I look at the shorts on the social stuff, and the only thing I will say about that is, like, they're interesting sometimes, entertaining almost all the time, and hardly ever useful.
Yeah.
The short stuff, I've watched it like you. I'm like, I see a short thing, but oh, that's interesting, entertaining. I don't use it for anything.
Yeah, it's totally true. Right. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what your thoughts are in regards to being an author. Do you think? Well, let me backtrack a bit and say, for me, I love to read. Obviously, someone that's in search of knowledge, and something I heard was someone saying, reading a book is for an author, it's like you're spending intimate time listening to their story, right? And it's probably one of the closest ways that you're learning something, because it's just you and them, and you're really getting into what they're doing. And so for me, do you think that anyone can be an author, or what makes or could make someone a great author?
Well, it's two different questions. Anyone can be an author, but being a great author is got to define what great means, I guess.
Yeah.
But so when Amazon launched the self-publishing arm, where anybody can publish a book, it was a double-edged sword. It's great, anybody can publish. It's horrible, everybody does. Right? So there are between 2 and 3 million new books every single year. So it's like content is we're saturated. There's this overabundance of content. AI is going to make it 1,000 times worse, right? So anybody can publish, that's true. Which brings it back to distribution and connection and relationship, because if you've got those elements with your book, you'll have a connection, you'll make a difference, you'll make an impact to be useful as well as entertaining and interesting. That's the 30 things you got to have. So I do believe that most people should document their story, their journey. I ask this question for my legacy authors, the people who are at their pinnacle and ready to retire, whatnot. Yeah, I'm thinking to do a book. I don't know who's going to read it, whatnot. And I ask the questions like, do you know who your dad and mom were? Oh, yeah. You ever meet your grandparents? Yeah. How about your great-grandparents? Maybe some, not. You know your great-grandparents' first name? No. You know your great-great-grandparents? Not a clue. And I said, well, someday that's going to be you.
Yeah.
So documenting your journey, lessons, inspirations, how you lived is so important for future generations. I lost my parents a few years ago, separately in the 90s, but I think about them every single day. I fortunately started videotaping, interviewing my parents in 2018. So I got lots of footage of them talking, sharing their life, what it was like in the 30s and 40s and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And social media is making it a little bit easier for us to look back. So maybe 100 years from now, there'll be an archive of Facebook posts. I don't know. But from your perspective, telling your story from your perspective, your journey, I think most people should document that to some degree. And if you're a business leader, then you should document it with intention to serve others. Even though you don't think you can, I believe in my whole hearts that everybody has something to offer. So yeah, I think not everybody, most people should consider it for either personal or professional reasons.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And in line with what you're saying in terms of um, learning to document your story and have that sort of information, I found that, and especially when it comes to success, there is always a correlation within that passing of information, right? From one generation to the next, because that's really how you can prepare either the future, really share your story, give people the, like the heads up on this is one of the reasons we make this decision and don't walk this path because, this is what you can expect, right? So
Right, right.
I think that's always important. So I want to talk about, tell us about, Author Your Brand. What's the company about? What problem are you solving? And how are you helping your customers?
Thank you. I appreciate that. Author Your Brand started, like I mentioned, from my big dip, and I had this software, and Chet said, just do a full-size book. So I started ghostwriting for founders and CEOs. And our process is one thing, right? We've got a whole great process of interviewing and research and documenting and journalism and ghostwriting and editing. That's pretty standard stuff. But I created it because someone, it was, hey, this is a way to make money. That's fine. But I fell in love with it for the stories that I hear from people, but more importantly for the impact I know they have inside them. God doesn't make any junk, man. Yeah. Everyone has a reason, purpose that they're here, and most of us don't make our full potential. And when I meet people, I always see it. Almost always, I go, "Oh my gosh, you could impact so many people with this. If that's important to you, but sometimes it's not. Maybe it's not important to impact people. Then okay, it's fine. Just document it for your family. But most people have something they can give, share, and make the world a better place. Sounds woo-woo. I don't care. I believe it. So, make the world a better place by helping others, right? And a book is a great way to start that. So, that's our mission statement is telling stories to make the world a better place, right? It's just done. But it's like a 9-month process, sometimes 12 months. The world record's 3 years for somebody, but on the other side, the best record is 44 days. Yeah. But it generally takes about 9 to 12 months to fully do the research, interviews. Sometimes we'll interview your customers. One of my favorite things is interview prospects for your book. Asking about that in a second.
Yeah.
And so it's an iterative process, right? We have a journalist, a ghostwriter, editor, production team, and marketing team that does all this for our authors. And the biggest unique thing that we do is we focus heavily on distribution before the book is written. Most people, unfortunately, fall into the thing. They're going to work on their story and give birth to their book, and okay, and then they publish it, Amazon or with a hybrid or with, okay, here, I just spent all this time publishing a book. Here you go, world. Remember, there's 2 to 3 million new books every year. And what do? Oh, I'm going to post it on social media. Okay. I'm going to send email blasts. Okay. Do podcasts. Okay. After a week, what happens? Your friends, your connections are sick of it. I've heard you talk about your book for 7 days now. I get it. I got my copy. Shut up, right? Unless you've got a database of 1 million people and you just depend on social, email, podcast to get your message out, that's all you do, I can pretty much guarantee you're not going to make any traction. Yeah. I don't see how. Yeah. So you show me one person who just did an email campaign or a social media campaign and became a best-selling author with just that, right? It doesn't happen. So what we focus on is distribution early. Okay, you're gonna craft this book. Who's it for? It's for business leaders. All right, great. Where else do business leaders hang out? Describe your business leader. What kind of industry is in? Oh, you know what? There's a international plumbing convention coming up. Those guys all want to grow their companies. Why don't we talk to them now? Ask them for a quote or a story about your theme in your book. Include that in the book. And then when the book is all done, you tab it, send them a copy. Oh my, and what do? They read the whole book? No, they read their section, right? They read their section first. Yeah. Oh, this is great. This is how my wonderful stories in this guy's book. Yeah, let's I think we got an association meeting coming with about 10,000 people. Can we get some copies for that? Like, yes, you can. So by preceding your audience and aligning stories and values and ideas together, it's much easier to get distribution set up when you plan it out ahead of time. And if you already published, we still have ways to get in those rooms of these large, like tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of people represented with an organization, whether it's nonprofit, corporation, association, trade group, doesn't matter. We've got relationships with a bunch of them, and we invest a lot of our resources into building those and expanding those relationships for our authors. So distribution is a key function that most people don't have a clue about. They get sucked into social media and all that stuff, and it doesn't work. Unless you've got a really big list, it can work, of course. Most publishers nowadays won't even talk to you unless you've got a 100,000 person database. Emails. Engaged, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I can say right here, hi, I'm Carl, and I recently learned the importance of distribution and getting in front of the right people, right? Even when I started the podcast, created the TikTok account, the Instagram account, the Facebook account, shared it, released it on YouTube, and you expect things to happen, but you start to understand that first of all you need to be presenting it to the right audience, people who are actually going to listen. So getting your product in front of the right people who would actually take action on it and who are interested, obviously, in what you're talking about and would like to learn more. Also finding the right channels. Where are your people, and how can you get that message to them? So I think clearly, with how you're doing it is you have a strong understanding of that, right? And you're not putting the cart before the horse, but you're actually understanding where these people are, who would resonate, and obviously in this case, this would lead to the growth of it, right? It's the same as including networking, right? You want to be around the right people to be able to sell to the right people. So that's fantastic, and I can tell obviously your approach is one that definitely serves your customers and has a big impact. And so, with that being said, you mentioned, and I wanted to ask, which I thought was really interesting, you said you're interviewing their prospects, right? So what's your goal with these interviews? And, is that to gain insight? And
Yeah, it does a lot of things.
How are you doing it? Yeah.
It does a lot of things. And what I'm coaching my authors to do is to think really, really big. Really big. Like, don't even think about 10x. We want to 100x this thing. So when it comes to putting people in your book or interviewing them, go for national companies. Go call up Pepsi. Call these people up. It's not always easy to get through there, but you're not calling to sell them something. You're calling to include them in a book. It's a little easier to get through.
Yeah.
I did a campaign last year for a gentleman, and he tasked me with contacting family offices. These are the families that have their own banks, right? The Bloomberg family, the people who've got billions of dollars, and I put a email campaign together. I got a hold of a bunch of them, and I had about 10% of the 250 people that I emailed said, yeah, I'll be happy to talk to you. I got on the phone with some very, very wealthy, successful people because I'm coming at them as a journalist, writing a book, or in this case, I was writing an article for Entrepreneur, but they took the call and they spent time with me. So getting your distribution set up right and interviewing people ahead of time. We did a client, it's sad. He's still with us, but he has inoperable brain and lung cancer. Given like a 4% chance to live 6 months. It's 5 years. He's still with us. But he's dropping these names in his book. American Cancer Society, Vistage, and so when his book is all done, we didn't redact their names. Left them in there. Sent the book to them. Guess where his first 2 keynote speeches were? Vistage National, American Cancer Society. So he didn't do it for money. He's retired. He just did it because he loves those organizations, and they loved him back, obviously. So if you strategically look for large distribution channel partners and contact them early and often as a journalist for your book, you're much more likely to get distribution set up ahead of time. And if it's prospects, oh my gosh, imagine you want to get into a big company with what you're doing. No, they're not going to talk to me. Well, maybe they'll talk to you about your book. And then you interview them once or twice and build that relationship. Book comes out, you send it to them. You're having all these touch points along the way, talking about the most important topic to them, which is them, not you in your book, right? Talking about them.
Exactly.
So, and since it's a 9-12-month process, you're not in any hurry. You interview them, transcribe it, send them a sample, give them the book. Hey, we're going to launch this thing. Yeah, you want to help? Yeah, I'd love to help out, right? And eventually they're going to say, what else do you do?
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, I happen to have this workshop we need that. Or I got a friend who needs that. But that's the way business is done at the upper levels. It's not pitching and funnels and VSLs. It's like relationships for enterprise stuff.
I couldn't agree more. And the importance of value add, you know what I mean? I feel like a lot of people see it as, you know, I need this from you, but I don't even know you, and you kind of feel that entitlement. And it's the importance of, you know,
Yeah.
being able to actually build that relationship where you're willing to give something. You're taking someone's time if you're requesting a meeting, or if you're requesting their money, if you're making a sale, right? So
Right.
it's what's the value to them as well. And I think that's super important that you're including that in there. What tips could you give, for example, someone who's considering writing a book? You know what I mean? And maybe they're a little nervous. They don't know how to start. I mean, obviously, it'd be great if they can connect with you, and I hope they do.
Yeah,
But
happy to help.
what tips, you know, could you give someone who's maybe struggling and is sitting on
Yeah.
the fence there?
So yeah, obviously we ghostwrite and publish our people. We have a pretty solid process, doing 15 years. And depending on who you are, it's either really cheap or not that cheap. It depends on what your situation is. So that aside, as I mentioned earlier, most people should document their journey, their lessons. And if it's to be published in a book, the best advice I can give is something I don't always do myself. So it's, you know, whatever. It's to write every day, document it. If you want to record it, I recorded my first book because my mind went so fast I couldn't type. So I recorded it and took the transcripts and handed it off to an editor. It still sucked because nobody interviewed me. Which, by the way, if you can have somebody interview you who's a professional or at least a very curious person, your book is going to sound so much better. Without it, it generally sounds like a diary. So either get a really good editor or a really good journalist to interview you. And nowadays, yeah, you can just document it on audio, transcribe it, pop it into AI, and make a book. I definitely want to give very important story structure prompts to do this. You don't want to have it write the book without your input ever. That's a definite no-no. But if you've documented your stories and someone's interviewing you to make them rich human experiences, that's the important part. That's one thing AI cannot do. But once it's out there and it's in a transcript or it's a format, it can organize it for you and can just pull it together. Yeah, I'd never put anything out on the universe that hasn't been touched by a human when it comes to writing, right? Obviously, software is different, but for creating your story and whatnot, make sure you always read everything that goes out. Take responsibility for your own story. So yeah, I would say document everything, write, record. Most people have more than one idea. All the entrepreneurs I know have 5 books in them. Jack Canfield told me once, you put folders out, put like 5 folders on your desktop. When you get an idea for one book, record, type, and put it in that folder. Something else, put it in that folder, and just keep building your content library, and then eventually you have enough to. I think there's a book in here somehow. But please edit the crap out of it. I've had so many people take their blog. I got 2 years of blog and turn it into a book. I'm like, okay, that's not the same thing. Where's your story arc? Where's your character development? Where's your hook? Where's your payoff? Where's the lesson? Where's the entertainment? Where's the utility? If you don't have those things structured in your manuscript, no one's going to read your book.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. One thing I wanted to ask, just based on that, is, you know, something I've been trying to do, and then just being honest, I've been struggling to do is trying to journal. You know what I mean? And I know the importance of it, of being able to write down your thoughts, being able to actually see them. And I think it plays a big role in being able to plan what you want to do next. Are you someone that journals? And if you do, you know, what helps you be able to continue to do that? Certainly when you're a busy entrepreneur, and making sure you make time for it in your day.
You mean journaling for self-development?
Yeah. Do you journal?
Yeah, I've done it a couple times in my life. I don't do it consistently, to be honest. But there's a couple phases in my life where I was encouraged to, and I did it. I know for a fact it's important to do it by hand, not by typing, because I've done both, and the hand one takes longer. I can't always read it, but there's that tactile connection between the brain and the body that's important. I think guided journaling is going to be better than just random, because our brains are flying around. At least mine is flying around with 18 ideas at once. So I think if you have a process to go with that, it would definitely help. I also encourage people to read. You know, the social media thing it's weird. I was commenting on someone's post this morning. In fact, he's talking about how you know, we're fed what they want us to see, right? We don't have any freedom of choice, really. It's just like the algorithm says, I'm going to sell you this thing, so I'm going to put that stuff in front of you. Or they put divisive things in front of us to get us arguing because it makes us stand in line more to sell more ads. It's so blatant propaganda, no matter what it is. Doesn't matter what it is. I don't care, left, right, center, doesn't matter. But during the pandemic, I'm a positive guy. You know, I haven't watched broadcast news in 20 years, but I'm online plenty. And during the pandemic, I was, you know, I had trained my algorithm to only show me things that I wanted to see. It's very, you know, confirmation bias, I know, but I don't care. But when it hit, and I'm going online, looking at stuff, reading, you know, things, my business came to a halt, like stone cold dead stop. And nothing came in for 45 days.
Wow.
Like, man, I'm not going to be able to survive this. What's going on? I went for a bike ride up in the wilderness, really, in a road bike. And I'm looking around, Carl, and the trees, they don't have COVID, you know? The birds don't know what a pandemic is. Like this, I'm in a bubble all of a sudden. Like, this feels great. I'm not stressed. I'm peaceful. I kind of like it. It feels good. I'm going to stay out here. Oh, I got a business to run. Maybe I could bring my customers to my little bubble here, you know? No, can't do that either. So I said, I think I know what the problem is. The problem is I was going on social media. And no matter what it was, doesn't matter. Like I said, doesn't matter what it was polluting my brain or my energy, really. So I knew it was crack. I knew I couldn't. I had to go on every day and look at things, right? I got to scroll, doom scrolling.
Yeah.
So I called up my social media manager. I said, hey, Ken, I want you to change my password on all my socials and don't give it to me for 30 days. This is an intervention, okay? I need the cold turkey. Don't let me on it, right? So I did it for a little over 30 days. Business went up 300% from the previous year.
Wow. That's amazing.
So why that's important, I forgot what your question is, but it's a really important story because I think that we get sucked into things and the deep fakes are so good now. Even things that are real, I don't trust. So I believe in my head that we've reached the pinnacle of the trust economy and people will be trusting digital things a lot less moving forward because it's getting so good you can't tell. That's why we're leading into relationships and, you know, live events and meeting people in person because, you know, can't take that until those robots get really good looking. So.
Yeah, I totally agree. And as you're saying, yeah, we're in this information age. We're definitely at a time where there's almost too much information. Do you know what I mean? And too much opinion that is being kind of described as, you know, correct information, right? So there's so much of that, and then. The fact is, you know, obviously, and I think this is important, is the importance of relationships and being able to meet in person, right? It's like you can get stuck in that bubble of yours and that get tunnel vision and how to think about things, but you know, the world's a big place, so there's a lot of different things going on. So I think that's certainly super important. So I want to, you know, as we wrap up here, is I want to know, especially for the audience, where can we get more information around Author Your Brand? What's coming up down the pipe that, you know, the audience should know and we should get excited about?
Yeah.
I know you're always at the forefront of, you know, how to do things differently, and I think it's super, super important that we know what's going on.
Thanks. I'm very accessible. I have a small company, and I respond to you know, texts and emails as soon as I get to them. But authoryourbrand.com is our main site. That's where we help people position, distribute, market, and then write and publish your book. And that's the right order, right? We focus on distribution, positioning first, then we can roll into the actual story. So Author Your Brand is a place to go there and contact me. My personal website, dougcrowe.com, is also, you can go that one as well. And my email is doug@dougcrowe.com. If you want to get a hold of me, just put Carl with a K in the subject line, so I know it came from your show. And I'm happy to talk to them. I've got a process where I can actually help them pretty much vet and validate their book idea before they spend a dime, even with me. I'll do a quick analysis and that 3-star review thing, and then take a look at what they're doing. And I give them a pretty good thumbnail sketch of like, you know what, your book idea could go over in this marketplace pretty well, or maybe you want to tweak it and do something else. But I could give somebody an assessment in a 20-minute phone call, no problem.
That's awesome. I highly encourage everyone, you know, jumping on this opportunity. As you've heard for yourself, in terms of Doug's approach and the type of success he's having with his clients, I think that's a great opportunity to definitely get an assessment done. And so my final question to you is, I mean, with everything you've accomplished and everything you've overcome, what are you most proud of?
Most proud of? Oh, my children, my wife's business, my clients, getting success for themselves. Personally, I'm a pilot, so when I earned my instrument rating, that was a big accomplishment for me.
Yeah.
But mainly, I'm proud of my kids and my wife's accomplishments, and my clients for putting up with me and for staying the course and finishing this process. Because, most people are into, hey, I want to get this thing done quick. To do a well-told story, well-positioned, pre-distributed, marketed, we need a year, man. So if you can hang out for a year, and most of my clients become my friends because we're a concierge shop. So if we work together, you'll get to know me. It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us. It's been extremely insightful, and I know people are going to definitely learn a lot about how to run a business, but also the right way to actually position and storytell. Right. So I can't thank you enough. I would love to have you on again so we can continue our discussion, and we'll take it from there. But thank you for today, Doug. Take care.
Thank you, Carl. Appreciate it.